All right, old friends, new friends, and everyone else, what is going on? Welcome to a bonus weekend episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much to everyone out there, as always, for listening to the show, for watching it. However you choose to consume Talking Buffalo, I really appreciate you guys very much. I also appreciate today's sponsors. Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, brand new patio bar, soft opening now, Tuesdays through Sundays. I got a chance to check it out. It is awesome outside with this weather warming up, so great place to be, Sunny Reds. And, of course, Imperial Pizza, 2 locations, including the staple one at 1035 Abbott Road, the best lunch special in town, some of the best pizza in town, and they're starting to get some nightly specials in there, man. Really love that place as well. All right, like I said, a bonus weekend edition of Talking Buffalo here. Didn't have an episode on Tuesday, so we're making up for it. And I am joined right now by a buddy, and we'll call him a recurring guest at this point. Been on recently, on again. Hopefully he'll be on a lot more in the weeks to come as well. Buffalo Bandits commentator, I like to say sports media personality as well. My guy, Steve Bermo, man. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Doing well, Pat. Thanks for having me back. Glad you're feeling a little bit better and excited to be on a Saturday special episode.
Yeah, and let me preface this too. I need to say this off the bat. Steve and I are recording this late into the night on Wednesday. So if something kooky happens in the world of Buffalo sports on Thursday or Friday, and we ain't talking about it, and you're going to be like, what the hell's going on here? Just so you know, that's why. But we do got plenty to talk about today, even if nothing crazy happens over the next couple of days. We're going to talk little Sabres, talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bandits, because I finally got a chance to talk to you now on the podcast, because you were obviously there on the call. I want to get some of your reaction to that. We'll do that a little bit later in the show. I want to spend a chunk of this episode, Steve, talking about it. And God, I almost hate to dial it towards what some people are just going to perceive negativity, because by and large, this is not a negative podcast. I'm not negative on the Bills. I'm very high on the Bills. I know by and large you are as well. But I like to be objective, and I like to try to talk about this team from all angles and covering all ground. And today we're going to talk about what primarily, and I came up with 4 things. What are the primary things that have held the Buffalo Bills back from, despite all the success that they've had under this regime and, winning playoff games every year, what has held them back from getting to the ultimate goal, which of course is getting to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl. So that's kind of what we'll be talking about primarily today. Before that, though, I got to tell you this. Let me ask you a question, actually. And this is a Saturday morning for some people listening to this anyway. Are you a coffee drinker or no?
Every single day, my wife and I are coffee snobs. Our coffee pot grinds the beans right before it brews.
Mm.
So we get whole bean coffee delivered to the house. I don't do K-Cups. I'm not a Keurig guy. I like the instant coffee. I'm out. Tim Hortons is not nearly as good as it used to be, and I'm out on that most times as well. I'm not picky if I need a cup of coffee. A bad cup of coffee is better than none in the morning.
True.
So at like a hotel or something, I gotta have one. But we are coffee snobs. I do have a French press. I don't use it every day because it doesn't make enough coffee. But we have like, $100 coffee maker, not the Mr. Coffee 1995 at Target, because we like our coffee and we do it the right way.
Well, I asked you because I finally discovered something here. And I don't know that I'm a coffee snob, but I think I might be working my way up to being one, which is funny because just a handful of years ago, I never drank coffee in my life. I hated coffee. I was drinking K-Cups, okay, and different varieties. Wegmans because they're cheap. Tim Hortons, kind of mid to, a little bit of pricey. And then Pete's, which I've actually really enjoyed, but those are very expensive. Kind of fell out of love with the K-Cups. And my birthday was last month. And my kids for my birthday. And I started to realize I was also getting sick of spending so much money on K-Cups too. So for my birthday, about early May last month, my kids chipped in and they got this Ninja XL coffee maker. Nothing too elaborate. I mean, it's nice. It's not a cheap coffee making pot, but it's also nothing too crazy. And it doesn't grind the own coffee too. You got to use coffee grounds with it. But ever since then, I'm telling you, dude, I have tried about 9 different types of coffee grounds. I have probably spent way more than I should. I mean, if the primary purpose was to save money from K-Cups, that's not been successful for me because I've been trying one or a pod. I'm like, I really don't like this. And then tossing it. I started out with Wegman stuff and because it's cheap and it tastes cheap. And now I know the difference where maybe a year ago I didn't know the difference. Now I do. Like I said, I got some Pete's ground coffee, but it's like, man, $14 for like a 12-ounce little bag. And I'm like, man, this shit makes maybe 3 pots or whatever. This is even more than what it was to have the K-Cups. I'm happy to report that I finally found the perfect, for me at least anyway.
A winner.
I found a winner, dude. I am done having to buy coffee grounds because I found the winner. And it's in the middle. And it's an old, familiar name.
Bush Light Apple.
No, but no. And then guess what? I also didn't get it at Tops at 6150 South Park Avenue in Hamburg. I can promise you that. But going back to, I think it might have been the 80s. Remember Folgers in your cup? It's Folgers. And I didn't like dark roast, but now I do.
Oh, yeah.
My wife kind of turned me on to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's Folgers Black Silk dark roast. I've had 2 pots of it over the last day and a half, and holy shit, I found the sweet spot. Now I'm actually looking forward to getting up in the morning and having that first cup and a half of coffee. It was a frustrating process, dude, trying to figure out what do I like, what don't I like, or the inconsistency. Sometimes you'll make a pot and it tastes good, and then it feels like you've put the same amount in the next time, and it doesn't taste the same.
Can I help you here? So every night before I go to bed, I prep the coffee. And the problem is the last thing I smell is the coffee. And I go to bed craving it because I'm addicted to the caffeine, no doubt. So I go to bed craving my morning coffee. When you go to brew your coffee, put the smallest amount of salt in the grounds. I mean 3 flakes, and it'll cut the bitterness because the salt hits the same receptors on your taste buds as bitterness. So if you have the tiniest amount of salt mixed into the coffee grounds right on top, and you brew that pot, you will never have a bitter cup of coffee, and you'll have that strong dark roast, but it will be smooth and not bitter.
Nice. All right. Okay, I like it, man. But I'm just excited. I'm excited to finally figure that. I feel like I finally got over the hump with this. So that makes me happy. Let's get into something that doesn't make me happy. Probably doesn't make you happy, and surely doesn't make Buffalo Bills fans happy, but I want to talk about it anyway, quite frankly, today. And again, that's what's holding the Bills back. Steve, and I came up with 4 things, and I think 2 of them for sure. 3 of them is an extension of 1, and 4th is just a couple unfortunate plays, but they kind of been lumped together. And I want to get some of your insights and thoughts on these 2. I'll kind of lay it out and then turn it over to you for some reaction. Number 1 is the obvious one, and that's just the defense. This has been a defense under Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott came here a defensive-minded coach. This has been a pretty, all things considered, defensive-minded organization, even though they have an all-world quarterback, obviously. But this has been a defense that, by and large, has been good under Sean McDermott. They've enjoyed a lot of regular season success, but they get to a point in the playoffs, in elimination games, divisional rounds, 2 AFC championship losses, and it becomes an abomination. It's just been horrifically bad. I mean, not even kind of bad, horrifically bad. Let me throw out a couple numbers at you and for everybody listening. The Bills have given up 33.2 points per game in their last 5 playoff losses. Let that sink in. Almost 33.5 points per game. All right, against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills in the playoffs have scored 29, 24, 36, 24 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. In those games, never less than 24. In those games, they're 0-4 in the playoffs against the Chiefs. They've given up at least 361 total yards of offense in every playoff loss. They've given up at least 60% of 3rd and 4th down conversions in their last 4 playoff losses. 29 of 50. 58% of the time in elimination losses, the Bills have allowed whoever they play to convert on 3rd and 4th downs. They don't take the ball away. This was a team last year that led the NFL in plus-minus turnover ratio. The Bills have forced just 3 turnovers and only got 6 sacks in their last 5 playoff losses. Again, McDermott's supposed to be a defensive guy, but this keeps happening. Well, what do you make of something like that when you got a guy who's known for his defense, and not that he's just a defensive coach, but his defenses have just completely broken down? What do you make of it when you hear stats like that they're giving up nearly 60% of conversions on 3rd and 4th, 33.2 points per game? They're scoring, but it doesn't matter. What do you think when you hear stuff like that?
Didn't the Chiefs come into the game this year with like averaging 20 points a game or 17 points a game this year? Their offense was down all year long. And then in the playoffs, they were able to hang, I don't even know how many, 33
I don't think
or whatever
they didn't
it
hit
was.
30 points. They didn't hit 30 points before they played the Bills, I believe, this year.
Correct. That sounds right. So then the defense, for some reason, struggles. And I know we're going to get into some of the injuries and things like that happen. It doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't add up that would be what cost them. And a couple of things, I know you didn't ask me this, but one of the things that really pisses me off is how many people talk about Josh Allen's postseason performances. It's like, this guy doesn't play linebacker. He's hanging up points. You already alluded to the number of points that the Bills have been able to put up, but the defense hasn't been able there to back them up. They haven't made plays. You can point to injuries. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, but there's other things you can look at. The other thing I want to be careful of, especially because this is a podcast in Buffalo, is you have to tip your hat to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, because
yes, you do.
The bigger the moment, the bigger they play. We've seen it time and time again. So Mahomes against the Bills in an AFC championship game seems to clean some things up and just plays a damn near perfect game. Now, it is the Bills' defense's job to disrupt that perfection by all means. That's exactly what they need to do. But Patrick Mahomes has made a career of balling out, especially in the postseason. And once again, I'm not trying to give him too much credit. The Bills are building a roster to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they haven't been able to do it. And the fact that it's the defense makes it hard for me to wrap my head around, because their defense is supposed to be, what Sean McDermott is good at, what Bobby Babbitt is supposed to be doing. And it just seems like they don't have any answers. And at least they don't get blown out, like they keep up, but it's maddening to see the defense not even force a punt. Was it 2 years ago? Did the Chiefs even have to punt in that game? Like, it's just crazy that they can't even get stops. Forget the explosive plays, forget the turnovers. They're not even getting stops against the Chiefs. And it's hard to watch because you love the team and they're right there and they're right on the cusp. And it's just disappointing to see that the defense lets them down in the biggest games of the year.
2 points that I want to make. One, sticking with the defense, something that really has not set well with me since it happened, going all the way back to the AFC Championship game, and we're in early June. And I get it. It's water under the bridge now. It's a new season, crying over spilled milk, all the cliches that you want to use. But as a football organization, unless you're the Chiefs or the Patriots when Tom Brady was there, you get a limited amount of opportunities to play for conference championships to get to the Super Bowl. So when you get them, you can't blow them, basically. And I still go back to Greg Rizzo in the locker room after the game talking about how the Kansas City Chiefs did things on offense that the defense flat out was not prepared for. They were not ready for it. They did not see it. This is not Steve Byrne or Patrick Moran speculating. This is not the Bills fans on Bills Mafia on Twitter talking about this. This is their best and highest paid defensive end, Greg Rizzo, literally saying that word for word. I mean, I'm only slightly paraphrasing, but he said that they were not prepared for some of what the Chiefs did. Conversely, and this is not supposed to be an indictment on the offense, although we'll get to a point where it sort of is a little bit, but the Bills just seem to run, at least this past season, stuff that they've done all year. And in their mindset, the motto was, hey, you know what's coming. Stop it if you can. The Kansas City Chiefs were fooling the Bills, and Greg Rizzo admitted that. To me, that has a lot to do with preparation and coaching. Now, I know Bobby Babbage is the defensive coordinator, and he deserves criticism too. But again, this is a Sean McDermott thing, man. You're the CEO. You are still, he's got his hands in that cookie jar when it comes to the defense. The other thing that you brought up, and I'm glad you did, was Josh Allen. Because almost every time I put an episode out, especially when I go through the YouTube comments, there's a fair share of people who want to say, well, yeah, look, it goes without saying, the defense has let them down, of course. But they've also kind of been more critical than Josh Allen deserves. Let's just put it that way. Has Josh Allen been absolutely perfect in the playoffs in these elimination losses? No. He's had some.
He wasn't one. The 13-second game, I thought he was perfect.
He pretty much was. But for the most part, he's left some throws on the field. He's left some plays on the field. He's made a couple of mistakes. But goddamn, man, he's a human being. Other than maybe Pat Mahomes or Joe Montana in his heyday, these guys don't play perfect games. But Josh Allen has played well enough for the Bills to have been in multiple Super Bowls by this point. I mean, come on, man. What are we doing here when you're using Josh Allen as one of the reasons why the Bills can't get over the hump? I think that's crazy. Listen to these numbers, Steve. In the playoffs, this is Josh Allen for his career in the playoffs. He's got 101.7 passer rating, 65.7 completion percentage, 3,359 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in 13 games. He's also ran for 668 yards and 7 touchdowns. 51 of his 112 rushing attempts have resulted in a first down or a touchdown. Totally, 32 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in his career in the playoffs. Let that sink in. 32 touchdowns, 4 turnovers, and there's still people out there that want to say that Josh Allen, why not, we'll say it. He's not perfect. He hasn't played perfect. But, man, talk about a quarterback who's played good enough to win, who deserves a better fate, and has a defense that has just let him down. There you go. 32 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, man.
Well, and his critics have always pointed to the turnovers, right? There was a while he had some fumble trouble.
Sure.
He threw some interceptions. We knew that a lot of those interceptions were like arm punts. It was 4th down, he's throwing it down the field, or it's out of the receiver's hands. But the biggest critics of Josh Allen's game, if they had a leg to stand on, was the turnovers. Oh, too many interceptions, whatever. To have 4 interceptions in the 13 playoff games, and let's be real, this Chiefs defenses that he's been up against have been really good. You don't make the conference championship game with bad defense, but Bills and Josh Allen on offense have shredded that defense a couple of times, but unfortunately their defense couldn't make a stop for him. But I don't understand the criticism for Josh Allen. First off, he's the reason you're there. If you remove him from the roster, you're not even making the playoffs, most likely. And then when you get to the championship game in the EFC, he's the reason that you're there. And then you look at his stat line. There are people who chirp him about the 13 seconds game. The guy threw like 6 incompletions, 5 touchdowns. It's just insane. Yeah. And it's not because I'm a fan of him. It's not about emotion or whatever. It's subjective. His numbers are insane, and he passes the eye test. When you watch him play, he plays so well, and I don't understand how blame falls into his lap. Other than maybe the Cincinnati game when nobody played well, we're not even really talking about that, right? But in the games against Kansas City, I don't know what else he's supposed to do other than play on the other side of the ball and play linebacker and try to stop Travis Kelce from catching 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, look, when you have 35 to 50 snaps in a playoff game or any football game, you're going to find bad plays. Most of Josh Allen's bad plays have not been in the last 3 minutes of games. And critics will say, well, the Bills had the ball. They had a chance to win. There's other factors, too. There's definitely other factors. I go to the playoff game, not this year, last year, where Chris Jones just has a beautiful pass rush. And if they could block him for 1/2 second, he's hitting Khalil Shakir for a go-ahead touchdown, but he's got to force the throw. There's lots of factors is what I'm saying. And I spent time talking about McDermott and just as, a defensive-minded coach and the defense let him down. We'll get back to the coaching. Because some of it's on the players, too. Make a play. The difference between the Chiefs and in the year that Cincinnati beat them, too, I think you could say that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen kind of played to a standstill. Flip a coin. They both played good enough. They both deserve to win. The difference is guys like Chris Jones and other defensive players, Travis Kelce on the offensive side, those guys step up in the biggest moments, in the biggest games. And part of the Bills' problem, especially defensively, are guys that are pretty damn good. You know, I go back to last year's game against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Where was Greg Rizzo when you needed a play from him? Where was, I love Terrell Bernard, but where was Terrell Bernard? Terrell Bernard was dead silent in that football game. Pretty much everybody on that defense, with the exception, actually, of Ed Oliver, who I thought had a good game. Most of that defense was just eerily silent. Like, where's DeQuan Jones? Where's DeJuan Smoot, a free agent signing you had last year? These guys, AJ Epinesa, just complete dead silence, and they do nothing. And that's on the players to make plays, too, as well. Now, injuries were a factor. We'll get to that in a second. You agree with that, though? Like, star players,
Yeah, of course.
if you're a good player, Terrell Bernard is a good player. He's a captain of this team. And I like Terrell Bernard. Let's be really clear about that. Matt Milano was okay. Nothing special in that game. But those are star players, and they got to step up and make plays. That's not coaching. That's just players not making plays, too. That's a factor when you talk about the defense crumbling, right?
Look at the regular season game a few years ago when Greg Rousseau came off the edge and tipped the ball to himself for the interception, right? That was
Yeah.
a game-changing play. And you have interceptions like Taylor Rapp, I think it was, of Mahomes to seal the game in the regular season this year. Those turnovers are not coming. And it's crazy because it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? If they were getting better pass rush, they'd probably have a better chance to get an interception, but they're not generating any pass rush. I don't understand how a defense who prides itself in turnovers can't find a way to get one in the big moment. Yeah, there's some injuries and whatever, but like you said, these guys disappear. And when you don't have that big game-changing moment, how do you beat Patrick Mahomes? You have to put pressure on him. That Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, he ran like 300 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He spent the entire game running for his life. And the Buccaneers had dudes that were getting back there and disrupting the play. Even if you don't force an interception, you've got to get to Mahomes. That's how the Eagles did it too. Yeah, their offense was pretty good, but you have got to get to Mahomes. And the Bills, for whatever reason, just can't do it in these deciding games. And then he's able to kind of pick you apart. And it's crazy because some of the injuries that we think about or talk about, these defensive ends, for the most part, if I remember correctly, have been healthy. Like this
Yeah.
hasn't been, the defensive line hasn't been injured. And you know that McDermott especially wants to get home with 4. Maybe Babich likes to dial up some blitzes, get some corners or whatever off the edge, some safeties coming down. But ultimately, McDermott's goal is to get pressure with 4, and they're not doing it. And then because they're not doing it, they're not getting those turnovers and they're not getting those stops. And of course, that's a recipe to lose to Patrick Mahomes. The other side of it is I'm not trying to give credit to the Chiefs. People are going to think I'm here to gas the Chiefs up. Andy Reid is maybe the best offensive coach we've seen. I mean, when
Yeah.
Rousseau says they did things that he hadn't seen before, that doesn't surprise me. Because when Andy Reid is prepping for that game, I guarantee you he's got some things up his sleeve that he's like, oh, boys, we got some stuff here for this weekend that they haven't seen before. And I do believe Rousseau when he says it, because Andy Reid is a guru as an offensive coach.
I want to make this abundantly clear, too, and I feel comfortable speaking for you as well when saying this. This is a discussion about what has went wrong to this point. This is not us saying this is the way it's going to be in 2025 or 2026. We're not saying the Bills can't get over the hump. We're examining why they haven't. I just want to put that out there because at this point, people are like, oh my God, what a doom and gloom episode this is. Well, we're talking about the past and we're just being objective and we're being honest here. Before we get to a break, all right, so we talk about the defense. That it's just crumbled. Number 2 to me, and this goes right alongside number 1, kind of in lockstep here, is just situational coaching and game planning. I could end this on one sentence and say 13 seconds. That alone right there almost certainly cost the Bills a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I've said this a million times, so here goes 1,000,001. In my lifetime of watching professional sports, that was the worst gag job as a coach that I've ever seen in my life, between kicking the ball into the end zone and then calling not 1 but 2 timeouts and playing guys 25 yards off the line and nobody, trying to get in front of Travis Kelce off the line to hit him, tackle him at the line if you have to. It's just, God, I hate reliving it. But It's the worst coaching gag job of my lifetime. Okay. So you have that. I go back to 2022, and this might be a little bit unfair. I admit this. The Bills were flat and defeated at home, and they got smacked by the Bengals. Now, in fairness, man, that was a long, end of the regular season and a very stressful end of the season with what happened to DeMar and just the emotions of that team. And maybe they didn't have anything left to give at the end of that. So maybe I'm being a little bit unfair, but I still feel like it's a home game. It's a playoff game. You won the first playoff game. You won the week before at home. You're at home against the Bengals. I think that was almost a little bit more of a case of it's our destiny. It's our year. A little bit of overconfidence. The Cincinnati Bengals, I remember this game. So they had 3 starting offensive linemen out for that game. Maybe the Bills were a little bit flat or overconfident. They were certainly flat. They looked lifeless and dead, and they got smacked. So you go to that. 2 years ago, and I feel like a hypocrite saying this because I didn't blast it at the time, but you're down, you're in your own 20-yard line, you call a fake punt to Damar Hamlin, and that was a disaster. Didn't end up costing them, though, but I could also point to that game, and my bigger criticism would still be Sean McDermott sticking with A.J. Klein in that game as long as he did, because the dude was on vacation or on his couch or some shit, and he just did not have it, and it was killing him. And then this past year, this isn't a McDermott thing. This is a Joe Brady thing. I've been very critical of Joe Brady. I thought his game plan against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game this past year was very bland, very vanilla. Again, unlike the Chiefs, they didn't show the Bills anything or the Chiefs anything that they hadn't seen before. They were stopping the quarterback sneak to tush push, but they kept going back to it anyway. James Cook doesn't touch the ball in the last drive. We all know about that. There was just a lot of factors in that game in terms of game planning and play calling that I didn't like. So as I throw this back to you here, a lot to unwrap. But coaching has been a very big part. None so, of course, more than the 13 seconds.
Yeah, I think that they're learning. I'm grateful that they've made it back to the championship game, and I hope they make it back to another one because if that
Mm-hmm.
was the end of the Bills' runs to an AFC championship game, that'd been such heartbreak because you said it cost them a chance to appear in the Super Bowl. I think it cost them a Super Bowl because I think if they would have gotten in, they would have finished it. But the 13 seconds game, it's crazy because it was so long ago, and I don't know if this is me having hindsight that's 2020, but we talk about like creative stuff, and it's like in that situation with however many seconds are left, all you have to do is get time off the clock. It has nothing to do with strategy or all you have to do is get time off the clock. And like Rob Ryan used to have too many men on the field on purpose or something like in
Yeah.
certain situations, and they changed the rule as a result that you get the 5-yard penalty instead of running the play live because he was trying not to give up like a tying score or something. How good would it have been if the Bills did something creative, like you said, tackle Kelsey at the line, put every DB in front of every receiver and just all take holding penalties. Every single one of you take the 5-yard hold. All of a sudden, there's no time left on the clock. Yeah, they get the untimed down. Don't give up the Hail Mary. You
Right.
mentioned
Yeah,
the
yeah.
situational.
Yeah.
And maybe that's me having hindsight that's 2020. But after that, I'm like, man, if only they would have done something like that. Instead, Travis Kelsey gets to signal to Mahomes whatever he did and run a seam pattern and get, 30 yards, which set up the kick. I feel like they've learned from some of those things. Sean McDermott has gotten significantly more aggressive over the years on fourth down. And, even culminating in that fake punt with Damar Hamlin, I was in the stadium for that game. We all knew something was up. The Chiefs certainly knew it because everybody did, because the Bills gave this completely different look. And like Damar Hamlin's running in motion 4 times behind the center. We all could sniff something out. And I don't necessarily blame the attempt, but,
Sure.
you don't have to be cute either. So I feel like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth. I just asked them to be more creative and try
Right.
something different. And I'm criticizing that play for being too cute. Because if it works, we're not even talking about it right now if DeMar picks up the first down. So I feel like they're living and learning. I feel like Allen is living and learning. McDermott. Now we hope that Joe Brady's lived and learned. He kind of got burned by every 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 doing a tush push, which I don't hate. I get it. But as you said, it was kind of vanilla. There were personnel questions. Why did James Cook not play at all in the last drive? Like, they'll learn from those things. Now we just hope and pray that they get themselves in the situation again to prove that they've learned. Because, like you've said, they may not get to the championship. It's not a given that that's going to
No,
happen. You know, I keep having conversations with my daughter about the Bandits. Eddie, this doesn't happen every year. And now for the Bills, we can't take for granted the chances they've had in the championship games. I do think they absolutely are equipped to get back. But
sure.
now, you know, every time it's happened, something silly has happened. And I am I wrong in saying at least they haven't made the same mistake twice? I don't
Well,
know.
no, you're not wrong. But how many opportunities, to your point, do you get to an AFC Championship game and play for a Super Bowl where it's got to come together? And it's got to come together soon, man. You can't burn any more years from Josh Allen in his what's going to be a Hall of Fame career at this point. And you're right about DeMar Hamlin, too, by the way. Again, I admittedly said, it's a little bit hypocritical. I criticize McDermott for being soft and freezing in the big moments in the playoff games and just trying fake punts and say like Dan Campbell style and shit like that. So it's hard to really be, I feel like a hypocrite being critical of that. But yeah, man, it's not Bills Mafia. Sorry, but you guys act like it's our birthright right now to wake up and go into the season and win the AFC East and win the division and get a home playoff game and win that game against the 7th seed and get another game in the second round. Don't work like that. Like, nobody cares that Joey Bosa's already got a calf injury. Nobody cares that Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi are both suspended for 6 games. All you ever hear is it doesn't matter. It only matters how they play in January. No, it matters how you play in September and October because all the games count. And having that home field matters. Winning that division matters. And you can't count on the rest of the AFC East going 7-10 every year. Sooner or later, somebody's going to put a legit challenge in. Miami did it just a couple years ago. So I don't consider that anyone's birthright. Anyway, let's take a real quick break, come back. I want to get through 2 more things, and then we'll talk a little bit of Sabres and Buffalo Bandits as well. Be right back. Boy, oh boy, dude, if you want to get in a pretty shitty mood and you think, you get up on a Saturday morning, you have your cup of coffee and get ready for the day and you're ready to have a good one. And we're living out some bad memories here on this podcast today, man. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. All right. So I said I had 4 things and we talked about 2 of them primarily. Just the defense crumbling, situational coaching has been garbage in the biggest moments. And I said a lot of these kind of go in lockstep because my number 3 one is, and we even hit on this a little bit earlier, impactful plays from an edge rusher or a cornerback. Those are 2 premium positions on defense. The Bills just shelled out $20 million a year for Greg Rousseau. They shelled out a lot more than that for Von Miller a couple years ago. They just paid Christian Benford $19 million a year. Those are 2 positions where, if your defense isn't playing well and you're giving up too many first downs or even drives that result in points, you're not getting the sacks, you're not getting the turnovers, you need a couple plays, a game-changing type play from an edge rusher, a big sack, strip sack fumble, or a pick from a corner. That could really change the direction of a game and make up for a lot of other things too. Well, that hasn't happened with the Bills, and that's been a big reason for me why they haven't gotten over the hump. Name me a huge, impactful play from Greg Rousseau or Von Miller or A.J. Epinesa, Leonard Floyd, or any edge rusher over the past 5 years when the Bills have lost in the postseason. I dare you. Name me one. The first name would come to mind would be Groot. Greg Rousseau has 3 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss, and 5 quarterback hits in 9 playoff games. In elimination losses, Greg Rousseau, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for a loss, and only 2 quarterback hits combined in the last 4 elimination losses. And then you go to corner. Ditto at cornerback. Trey White, even before we got hurt, Trey White, Levi Wallace, Rasul Douglas, etc. No big plays for them in elimination games. Christian Benford hasn't even played in 3 years now. I love that dude. Well, he did play a little bit. He got hurt in the first quarter. Very unfortunate this year. Year before that, he missed it with a knee injury. He did not play when they lost to the Chiefs, and he was on IR in 2022. So he didn't play against the Bengals either. The Bills have This is crazy. Their last 5 elimination losses, Steve, they have 0 interceptions. 0. 0. They have not forced a single interception in their last 5 elimination losses. So that's why I turn it to you, man. Just premium positions where the defense just ain't as a whole clicking, but you got to have somebody step up. Nobody's doing it.
So let's think. The Broncos Panthers Super Bowl. What play comes to mind? Von Miller stripping Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Cam Newton doesn't dive on the ball. Game over. The Seattle New England Super Bowl when they don't hand it to Marshawn Lynch. What play stands out? The interception on the goal line. Last year, what play stands out? What play is still you seeing highlights of? Cooper DeJean, right? You're going to see these huge defensive juice plays where something happens to turn the tide of the game. And I think I heard you say on the podcast earlier this week that the number of turnovers directly affects it might have been Joe Marino. Sorry, I listen to other podcasts too, but he was talking about how much of a correlation. There's no bigger correlation in the NFL between 2 stats than turnover ratio and winning. If you win the turnover battle, you win more games than you don't. It's the biggest marriage between 2 stats as far as a win and winning a turnover battle. Those things go hand in hand in the NFL. And it's sad because some of these guys, like Russell Douglas 2 years ago, he was an interception machine. That's why everybody wanted him here. I don't think he had a single interception last year. And in the playoffs, when it matters most, instead of making an interception, they're watching Travis Kelce run down the field. Like it's the pendulum swings too far the other way. And I think that these things go hand in hand. They have very talented edge rushers. They have talented guys who can get pressure up the middle, like Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips, and they just don't do it. I don't know what the answer is. And, you look at that Cincinnati game when they had 3 linemen out, you thought that the Bills defense would have feasted. Yeah. And I don't know. I wish I knew what the reason was, but it's crazy because, the Bills have been so good at winning the turnover battles. We go back to Allen only having 4 turnovers in, the last so many seasons. It stinks. And I wish that there was something that we could figure out and put our finger on. Now, here's what I'll say, Pat. They know that the pass rush with Von Miller and whatever wasn't where it needed to be. They addressed it. They didn't run the same guys out there and hope for a different result. I know Joey Bosa's hurt, but the Bills absolutely have identified that pass rush is an issue. They realized it when they signed Von Miller, and now they realize it again and signed Joey Bosa. And oh, by the way, how did the Bills spend all of their draft capital? The good news is it's not just me being a bozo and you being a smart podcast host that recognizes the defense has some holes. The front office does too, and they're working on it. And now we hope and pray that they get themselves in the situation to have a chance to run at the Super Bowl again. And these guys that they have drafted and signed and traded for with the idea that, hey, our defense is going to be better than it was last year is going to work. Your offense is always going to be good. You have a mutant back there where it's number 17. Nothing is going to stop him from being good. Nothing is going to stop him from hanging up points. It might not be 30, it might be 24 instead, but he's going to hang up points. They realize that defense has been what's held them back. They're not running out there like other organizations in sports that say, let's run it back and see if we can get a different result. It just wasn't our day. No, they make significant changes. People that were upset about the Von Miller signing and the money, I get it. But shit, at least they tried. They swung. They didn't just hope for the best with Epineza and Rousseau. Hey, it's not working. Let's get Von Miller. And oh, by the way, let's get Leonard Floyd too. Let's bring in Joey Bosa, but then let's draft these guys too because we want to have a better pass rush. So this is the opposite of being doom and gloom. Maybe I'm being super optimistic because the front office has made a very valiant effort to change things on defense. Maybe there'll be a different result in the postseason, and the defense will put up 3 turnovers.
No, look, I completely agree with you. We're talking about this whole point there, the edge guys and the corners. You said it. They did sign Joey Bosa. They signed Joey Bosa. I don't like that he's hurt right now, okay? That bothers me. I didn't love the signing then. I also understand the logic in it. And the people who, a few minutes ago, I just kind of bashed them and said, who cares? Nothing matters but January. That's bullshit because things matter in September too. That said, it does get to January, and if he's healthy, he could be a difference maker. They did sign Michael Hoyt. They did use a third-round pick on Landon Jackson. They traded up for a second-round interior rusher in Sanders. They traded up for a fourth-round plugger in Deion Walker who could do something. So they are continuing to address and go after what has plagued them when it matters most. And oh, by the way, what did they use their first-round draft pick on? A cornerback, Max Harrison, a guy who can fly, a guy who can run across the field with Xavier Worthy. And there's not a lot of corners in the NFL who are going to have the speed to do that. So the Bills, to your point, this ain't just you and I venting and bitching about shit that already happened in the past. This certainly is Brandon Beane and his staff identifying a major concern and weakness in this team when it matters, not in the regular season, when it matters, and going out and addressing that. And by the way, your point with the Bengals game, when those three guys were out for the Cincinnati Bengals and Ed Oliver still did absolutely nothing, dude, that set off a 2-year, I don't say hatred, a 2-year nonstop consistent rant from yours truly, just getting after Ed Oliver every single opportunity that I could. And then he came up short in Orchard Park in the divisional round last year against the Chiefs. He played like garbage again, and I ripped him a new one again. This year, nothing but love for Ed this offseason because Ed Oliver came to play in Arrowhead. He was far and away their best defensive player in that AFC Championship game. I'm just going to make sure I give him a little bit of flowers here since I've been such a dick to him over the last couple of years. All right, last thing. Doesn't sound like a big deal, and it's just a few singular plays, but they matter. They matter big. Their last 2 losses, drops, critical drops, all right? You go back to the AFC divisional round loss against the Chiefs in Orchard Park last year or 2 years ago. Trent Sherfield, not 1, 2 big drops. Stephon Diggs, your alpha, your wide receiver 1, the guy who's got to make the plays. What I talked to you about earlier, Travis Kelce could do dick in November and December. He's gonna come to play in January. Chris Jones could take a nap for October. He's gonna play in January and make a difference. Stephon Diggs didn't do it. Critical drop in that football game. Not saying they would have won, but they would have been in a position to win at least if he doesn't make that drop. And then you go back to this AFC Championship game last year, and I know he was hurt. I don't give a shit. His hands weren't hurt. Dalton Kincaid, not the easiest catch, but he's your first-round pick. He's an athletic guy. He's not even a tight end. He's a big slot. That's all I heard about him coming out. And again, hurt, I get it. Make the catch, though. You got to make the catch. Drops. That's 4 drops I just named. 4 drops cost him for sure, maybe 1, possibly both games. Drops don't sound like a big deal why you can't get over the hump, but they are for the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the Kincaid drop notwithstanding, a lot of these are really good throws. Like that Diggs throw was in the air for 65 yards and dropped into a basket. Remember the one that hit Gabe Davis in the face mask? Where do you want Allen to put it? Like it's over the DB's head, right into Gabe Davis's face mask. I wish it would have just stuck because then he would have caught it. But I think James Cook had a walk-in touchdown that he dropped against the Chiefs 2 years ago as well. It was like a little wheel route out of the backfield or a Texas route. And he went to catch it and dropped it, and he would have walked into the end zone. And if I remember correctly, the Bills settled for a field goal that drive. And yeah, there's nothing you can do about it because, especially guys that are usually pretty sure-handed. But those are the momentum killers because that if I'm correct that drop turned into a field goal instead of a touchdown, it's a 4-point swing. And obviously that game was a 3-point game, and you'd like to have the 4 points on the board from the touchdown. But it's the opposite of the big plays that we're talking about with the defense and the edge rushers. And, Allen puts everything he's got into this throw and puts it in a bucket 65 yards to the number 1 receiver with a game on the line. I'm sorry. Everybody's deflated after that. There's no way. I don't care that you're professional athletes. When something like that happens, Diggs is in his own head now. Allen's got to be like, what more am I got to do? The rest of the offense is like, what's going on with this guy? It's a deal breaker. Something like that happens. I hate that we were kind of counting on Trent Sherfield for big catches, but sometimes in the playoffs that happens. I mean, Matt Collins had the biggest catch of the game in the championship game this past year. So, sometimes guys got to show up, but, the Bills, that might be one of the problems without them having that dog as that wide receiver 1 that they haven't had for a while. Maybe it was Diggs. At that point for that game, it wasn't anymore. He had 1 foot out the door, at least it feels like that. So, maybe that's a symptom of not having that number 1 dog receiver. But yeah, it's tough when you have maybe the best quarterback in the league, who's we talked about. He does everything he can. He's out here balling out, and people are dropping balls that are hitting him in the hands. And that Kincaid one, I said to my wife, I'm like, Allen has done everything he could to get this team, to will this team to win, and it fizzles out on Kincaid kind of crumbling over himself. And I was like, could someone make a play for him? Because he makes plays for them all the time. An offensive lineman misses the block, he makes a guy miss, extends the play, runs for a touchdown, completes the pass, whatever. If Kincaid or anybody could make a play for him once in a while, like it was a bad throw, he could have threw into someone else that was open. I don't know, but man, if your first round pick could make a play to cover up for one of your quarterback's few blemishes, that'd be awesome.
I get asked about my great what ifs with sports, and there's bigger ones for sure, but I can't stop thinking about, especially since you bring it up. So Josh Allen, dude, he's on the Madden cover. He's with the Hollywood star, the gorgeous, Haley Steinfeld. Everyone loves her. He's engaged. He goes out, he wins an NFL MVP. He makes these ridiculous plays, highlight reel. I remember Mike Greenberg from ESPN saying I forgot who was it? It was Kansas City, Frisco, the Rams, and Detroit. That 4-game stretch. Mike Greenberg said on First Take on that next Monday morning, or Get Up, ESPN. He said it was the greatest stretch of 4 games he's ever seen a quarterback play in his life, ever. All right, so you got all this stuff going on. Imagine on that 4th down play where the pass coverage breaks down, or maybe Josh just rolls out the wrong way. Who the hell knows? We don't know. But what we do know is the play was done. It was toast. It was over. But he manages to get that ball up in the air in a place where Dalton Kincaid could go make a play, and a play he absolutely should have made. I mean, hell, Quentin Morris should have made that catch, let alone Dalton Kincaid, okay? Imagine if Kincaid comes down with that ball and the Bills go on and score later in that drive and they win that football game. Imagine where the legend, and they go to the Super Bowl, obviously, too. He gets them to a Super Bowl, win or lose, whatever. Just imagine how much the legend of Josh Allen, as great as it already is, just imagine if Dalton Kincaid makes a play for his quarterback on a play that was a busted play, and he made it happen. Can you imagine the shine that he would have gotten for that, making that play that was destined for doom, and he made something out of nothing by getting that football up there? That's something I still can't stop thinking about. Also, one last thing. You mentioned Trent Sherfield, why he was in the game. Kind of a bonus thing here, too. And I got to preface this. Every team has injuries, all right? So the Bills are not exclusive. And I hate using that as a reason why they've fallen short. But you say, well, Trent Sherfield dropped 2 passes. He shouldn't have been in the game. Well, he was in the game because Gabe Davis was hurt and didn't play. That's why he's out there. Christian Benford gets hurt early in the first quarter in this AFC Championship game, and Kyrie Elam comes in. What a disaster that was. Teron Johnson, who we didn't know it until a couple of days ago, played that game with a torn labrum, had surgery after the season. He got hurt in that Baltimore game. I was wondering why he looked like ass in that championship game, because Teron is one of the best DBs in the NFL. Well, it's because he was playing with a goddamn torn labrum. Taylor Rapp didn't play. He didn't play in the AFC game, or the divisional loss the year before that. Jarrell Bernard didn't play against the Chiefs in Orchard Park because he got hurt, and A.J. Klein had to start. I mean, it was. Rasul Douglas played on one knee in the divisional round loss 2 years ago. So I just want to point it out, and again, I get it. Injuries are part of the game, and every team suffers them. But the Bills have been hit pretty hard at some very inopportune times by injuries as well. So that's a reason. I would say this, though, Steve, one last thing. The fact that we're lamenting all these blown opportunities, the bad defense, coaching gags, drops, injuries, and yet here we are in June of 2024. You just got to call a championship game here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we're here in early June 2025, I should say, and the Buffalo Bills are prohibitive favorites to go to the Super Bowl again. They're the only team in the NFL that's favored to win every game this season. So if you're looking for something positive to take away from all this bullshit that we've been spewing at you, I guess it's the fact, Steve, that this team has been sustainable, man, built to last. A very resilient team. And resilient reminds me of the old 90s Buffalo Bills. Marv, you believe you used to say that all the time, resilient. This team's pretty damn resilient too, ain't it?
Yeah, and thinking back to the injuries, that the game where you have AJ Klein trying to cover Travis Kelce, I think he had 3 touchdowns. It's never going to work. I don't know what they could have done differently. And you know what just popped into my head? I think about when Trey White was on this team pre-injury, he would lock up Travis Kelce. He would go man to man with him and grab him at the line. And I'm not saying he's going to do that, but man, I have dreams of it now in my head that he locks up Kelce because he used to play man to man with him and got real physical with him on the line. And of course, Kelsey still got his, but not like he did in that championship game a couple years ago or divisional game a couple years ago. And the resiliency, I think it starts at the top. I mean, you have Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and the expectation that they're going to win. We talked about that a little bit the last time I was on, that the culture of Bills football is success. Super Bowl or bust. It's not, I hope we win this week. It's, I hope we win a Super Bowl. You have the best quarterback in the league talent wise and in Josh Allen and what he can do. And the defense is not suffering because you have Allen. Like you still have, cornerstones in Rousseau and Oliver on the line and your defensive backs with Bernard and your linebackers or your defensive backs with Benford, your linebackers with Bernard and Milano. You have dudes like Milano's a top 5 linebacker in the league when he's healthy. Bernard went on that stretch where he was just forcing turnovers left and right.
Yeah.
So they have a roster that's built to be, successful and resilient, and a core group that they've kept together, and they've structured contracts in such a way that Allen is well protected by his offensive line. The Bills have a decent defensive line. So they've done it the correct way, and they figured out how to have the sustained success. It's the same sustained success that the Eagles and the Chiefs have experienced without the trophy at the end. And I'm just praying that this year is different.
It resonated with me when you said, I don't know what they could have done differently when AJ Klein was trying to watch Travis Kelce 2 years ago. I remember pleading at my TV. I was like, please, please, please put Dorian Williams in the football game. And it was clear as day. Sean McDermott just was not ready to trust the rookie, to know what, to recognize what was going on the field against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And it just was, it's so painful. It's like watching somebody get beat up and you want to help, man, but there's just none you could do about it. It was absolutely the worst. All right, let's switch gears here for the last few minutes. I hope we did kind of lay it out. Like I said, we were talking about reasons why the Bills haven't got over the hump, but the fact that they are still here and still a favorite right now, all these years later, tells you about, how good this organization is from top to bottom, like you said. All right, with the Sabres. All right, so I had Matt Fairburn on from The Athletic a couple days ago. He wrote an excellent article in The Athletic this week, a story about Terry Pegula and Kevin Adams, and just kind of like the beat goes on with the Buffalo Sabres. And I thought it encapsulated the frustration of the fans a lot perfectly, to be quite frank. And it also was kind of informative. Like, it told a good story about Kevin Adams, how he came up, how he came into power, his journey from just being an employee for the Harbor Center to becoming GM of the team. I'm not going to give away the story. If you probably have read it, but if you haven't, you really should, man. It was a really good article by Matt Fairburn. And plus I had him on for a full hour and we already talked about that article, so we're not going to dive into what Matthew wrote. What I will ask you, though, is as we're getting into June now, the second week of June here, and the NHL drafts in a couple weeks. Free agency starts right after that. Alex Tuck's eligible for an extension on July 1st as well. The goal is to, break the chains, man, break the drought. And we're heading in towards year 15. And we'll deep dive into this. I'm sure I'll have you on again at some point before NHL free agency starts and real moves start to get made. But what do you think right now, as we're sitting here talking, realistically, this team is looking to do to, well, I don't even just talk about money. It's not even just about money. It's about players, about acquisition, it's about the roster. What do you see this team trying to do to be the year that they break this drought? Because it can't, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say it can't go on forever. Maybe it could go on forever at this point. Who the hell knows? But It's just so frustrating. Like I said, in every article, every podcast, every blog out there, just it's negative right now. This podcast,
Yeah.
everything. Because how can you not be negative at this time? So I guess what I'm asking you is to actually put on a happy face a little bit here. What the hell can the Buffalo Sabres realistically do to kind of change the course a little bit?
Yeah, I think that they're already trying. We talked about the Bills kind of learning from the past. Uh,
Mhm.
Unfortunately, fans aren't going to be happy with what they do. But bringing in Eric Stahl in the advisory role, it's a fine move. He guys won the Stanley Cup. He knows Buffalo. He knows Kevin Adams, and it's a voice in the room that has maybe a different perspective than Kevin or can run some things with him. I don't know what Eric Stahl's going to his role is going to be, but people who are mad at it are just haters. And I don't even know that you can blame them because people are exhausted. But I'm excited for it. And then Yarmo Kekalainen coming in. The Blue Jackets, people are like, oh, they didn't win shit. The Blue Jackets had more success with him at the helm than they had ever had in franchise history, right? When they beat Tampa in the playoffs and some of the acquisitions they made. I mean, don't forget, unfortunately, rest in peace, they signed Johnny Gaudreau. Like, that's a huge move that
Sure.
unfortunately, due to the circumstances, and I don't even want to talk about it because it's
Mm,
upsetting. I don't even want to say it didn't work out. There's not appropriate words for me to find, but
Understood.
he goes after it. And the other thing that he's shown, in my opinion, a knack for is the kind of guys to bring in to round out the roster, like Hartnell or Olivier. Like, he brings in these guys that have a little bit of an edge, a little bit of toughness. Like, you look at the Florida Panthers, like Mikola. Like, this guy's just a nasty grizzly bear on skates. And Yarmo identified some of those guys for Columbus and brought them in. And those are good moves. Those are the kinds of players the Sabres need to round out the roster. They have to find some edge. When they signed Jason Zucker, I was excited. When he re-signed, I was even more excited because I keep saying the Sabres need three more Jason Zuckers. I don't mean exactly him. Players
Right.
like him. Jason Zucker can play on line 1 or line 4. He will kill a penalty. He can play on the power play. He goes to the front of the net. He'll deflect a shot in. He'll get a punch in the nose, and he'll face wash somebody, and he'll score 30 goals for you. Like, every team needs three or four of those guys. I
Mhm.
think the Sabres have one, which is him. Like, they have talented players, but they need those guys to round out the lines. And my hope, you want me to put on the happy face, is that Jarmo Kekalainen has the experience of identifying those guys, whether it's in the draft, free agency, or via trade, that he's going to be able to bend Kevin's ear and be like, these are the kinds of guys that you need to round out your roster to complement the high end talent you have with Tage and Tuck and those kinds of guys that are going to put the offense in. And the same thing defensively. Might have a guy that can round out Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin, and the six defenders that play every night. So yeah, it's not hard for me to put the happy face on, Pat. I told you the last time, I'm still a fan. I watch all 82 games. I'll
Yeah.
go out to watch a Sabres game. So I might see things a little bit, with rose-colored glasses on. But I think that these moves in the front office is an admission that some things might need to be relooked at or have a fresh set of eyes on. And at least they're doing it. It's like the Bills signing Joey Bosa. Hey, the pass rush didn't work. Let's get someone else in here. Hey, you know what? We haven't been able to put together a roster that's found a way to make the playoffs. Let's get some fresh eyes in here. And I can't hate it. I understand why people are frustrated. The Sabres cannot win right now, but they're trying. And these are different moves than they've made in the past. And now we hope for different results.
Do, all right. I want to explain why I think, and I think a lot of fans would say the same thing too. The frustrating part, in theory, yes, man, you go get a senior advisor, somebody with a lot of experience, and you just spoke of him, and they are definitely doing some things differently. That's a positive thing. They know that you want to identify, you want to get a couple Jason Zuckers on your team, like you said. Absolutely, that's a good thing too. My issue with the Sabres right now, and I think the thing that's most frustrating is the reality that what free agent with any true value that's worth anything is going to want to come to Buffalo right now unless you grossly overpay him. If the market's even, he ain't coming to Buffalo at this time. Now, Down the road, you start winning, things change. This could be hockey heaven again someday. You know what I mean? I still, I mean, it's a long time ago, but I do remember how awesome it was. And players loved being here in Buffalo. They wanted to come to Buffalo. Okay. Right now, though, my issue is what free agent, like in theory, it sounds great. We see this free agent, this guy, who wants to come here right now? That's the problem. And then the other thing, and unlike other sports, so if you can't sign free agents, you're like, all right, well, we're going to go make a handful of trades. The problem, not that it can't get done. It can get done. Okay. I want to be clear about that. It's just more difficult and challenging because in hockey, unlike other sports, it seems like 90% of these damn players nowadays got some form of no trade protection. And you could bet your ass almost any player right now that's got any kind of no trade clause in their contract. And even if they only get a limited one, they can list 3 to 5 teams. You got to assume that Buffalo right now, as things stand, are among them. So in the theory of how you get better sounds great. The execution, I still think is going to be challenging. Ultimately, you got your star players and like that second and third level just got to be consistent, and you got to get better, more consistent goaltending, which is so big. You got to be able to steal a handful of games. Do I make sense? So like,
Sure.
Free agents coming here, guys wavering their no trade. You gotta show something first. You gotta win something first before players want to start doing that, I feel like.
Yeah, and to push back on the free agent thing, we talked about Mitch Marner the last time, and I was like, I don't know why the Sabres want a $15 million player. But the teams that are in the Stanley Cup final playing tonight as we record, they didn't use free agents to get where they are. They've drafted well, and they've traded well.
Yes.
You look at the core groups that are driving the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers to the success. It's not $12 million free agents. It's growing your talent, making good trades, and then your free agents are guys like, Jason Zucker. A Pat Maroon comes in as a free agent and helps push your team over the hump. You bring in guys like that are the supplemental players. So you're right. There may not be top-end free agents that want to come to Buffalo, but there are guys like Jason Zucker who are 32 years old trying to get that one more contract, and maybe the Sabres can pay him $1 million more than other teams on the market because they have the cap room. So those are the kinds of guys that you need to round out a successful roster anyway, and those are the guys that the Sabres might have an easier time signing because it's not Mitch Marner looking for 8 years, 7 years, $14.5 million. It's Jason Zucker who came here on a 1-year deal for $5 million or whatever, and then re-signed for subsequently like $5 million a year for a few years after. So they have to continue to build the core and develop, and these guys like Kulik or whomever have to work out. And I'm okay with free agents just kind of being the supplemental talent. Look at the last big free agent they signed, Kyle Oposo. I love him. He was the big name free agent that year. They signed him to the 6-year, $6 million deal. I'm not mad they signed him. He played an unbelievable game as a third or fourth line winger. I think $6 million was too much for the role that he played. But you take a swing at the top free agent on the board. How'd that work out? Look at Tavares with Toronto. They paid so much money to bring him in. He was the most highly sought after free agent. What has that gotten them? So the Sabres have to draft well and develop and supplement with those free agents. And I think they can find the type of free agents they need are willing to come here because of where they are in their career. And the Sabres might be able to pay a little more money.
Let's end this on a happy note. It's been a couple of weeks now since the Bandits won their third consecutive NLL championship. I've talked about it on the show already. I watched the game. I enjoyed it so much watching it. It was so much fun, so exciting. And, I know I'm being a bandwagon hopper here, but I kind of fell in love with not just the team, but the game. And I said after that game, I'm really committed to watching this team in week 1 next year and not just in the playoffs. Like, I'm going to follow them all season long. I'm going to devote more coverage to them. I gave them their shine. I had PK on from the Buffalo Sports Collective, my buddy. We talked some Bandits. I wanted to make sure I had you on and ask you about it because you actually got a chance. You were on the call. You were calling the game. What's it like for you, man? Again, it's not nothing. The Bandits is nothing new, but it doesn't. I would assume it doesn't get any less exciting. I will say too, props to you because I did have you on before the game, And we kind of previewed it a little bit, and you did say literally that if they could kind of withstand what Saskatchewan was going to throw at them early, that you said that there'd be a good chance the Bandits could pour it on and it would end up being a rout. And literally, that's what it ended up being. They shut them out in the second half, for Christ's sake. But I don't know, just a couple closing thoughts, man. Being there, covering it, and getting to experience all that shit again. We're so cool, man.
If only I could predict the lottery numbers as well as I predicted
Yeah,
that game,
ain't it?
because
Yeah.
I got some love for getting it right. And at the end of a different podcast I was on, where I said if they win, they might pour it on. He goes, either that's going to be a freezing cold take or you're going to be nails. And I was grateful that I was nails.
Yeah.
Yeah, the experience was awesome. You know, it's so cool to be around the team and to be involved with the team the way that I am, to be privileged enough to be on the field and celebrate. You know, we went out to Cobblestone afterward. There were so many people in there. My friends were like, "Where are you?" "Oh, I'm at Cobblestone." They couldn't get in. I ended up at a second location. I got my Uber home at 3 or 3:30 in the morning. I don't remember much. I don't remember my Uber ride. I think I just might have dozed off or something. And I honestly, so 2 years ago, I was out until 6 a.m. So I went out to get my Uber and it was daylight and I didn't know what time it was.
Wow.
So this year I kind of felt soft. Hey, I got home at 3:30? Well, I remember, Pat, the game started at 4:30. So the after party started at 7:30. So
Okay.
yeah, I didn't make it till 6 a.m., but it was still, 7 hours, 8 hours of enjoying the victory. And, we had the rally this past Friday. My wife and I got out of work a little early, picked the kids up and brought them downtown. The guys are great with me. They're even better with my kids. And I've said a couple of times, I want to know what it feels like to win on the road, because we win at home and it's awesome and it's this amazing party and there's thousands of people. I just kind of wanted to selfishly see what it would have been like if we'd have won in Saskatchewan and just had the team. There's a couple fans that made the trip out there, but it could have been a team celebration. So we had the rally on Friday at the plaza, and after that, we had a team dinner, which the Bandits do a great job taking care of us. Our families, our spouses are welcome.
Mhm.
And they ended up having a dinner for us at Riverworks, the second floor. And it was just us. And it was a private
Wow.
event. Nobody knew that we were there. I had a couple people ask me, "Hey, where are you guys going after the game?" I said, or after the rally. I said, "I don't know. We have a team dinner somewhere, and then they're probably going out afterward, but I'm going to have the wife and kids." I knew we were going to Riverworks. I was just trying to not have people show up there in droves.
Sure.
And you know what? We're upstairs on the mezzanine, and it's just the players, their parents, their kids, their spouses, the staff, our spouses, our kids. And it was awesome. Like, please don't take this as I don't love everybody being a part of it. Like, the celebration is epic with thousands of people in downtown Buffalo at the rooftop bars and at Cobblestone. But like, it was special. My kids could just walk up to the guys and like talk to them. And my daughter was getting her jersey signed by a couple of the guys, and they're just kind of sitting back. One of the guys has a baby on the way, and I'm talking to him about how awesome parenthood's going to be. And it was way less crazy. And trust me, crazy is awesome. When you win a championship, crazy, sign me up every time. But the celebration that we got to have as just as organization was awesome. And I really like that we got to have both. And I don't take it for granted. And I keep trying to tell my kids, guys, I know that this is your normal. This is not normal for a team to be on this run 3 years in a row and go all the way. I'm going to have the cup for a couple of days this summer. And the kids are like, "Oh, you're bringing the cup home, Dad?" "Yeah." "Are you going to bring it to our school again?" "Yeah, I'll bring it to school again to show to your classmates." But I keep trying to get my daughter, especially who's 8, to understand this may never happen again. I hope it happens every year. But, trying to make an 8-year-old understand that this sports team that she's grown up with that's won 3 in a row, don't take it for granted, kid, because we don't know when we'll get another one of these.
Yeah. Hey, Daddy, why don't the Bills win the Super Bowl every year? I get it, man. By the way, some of those Bandits guys I still see on IG and stuff, they're still partying a couple weeks later. Get at it, though, man. That's cool. It's awesome to see, man. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Bermel. This was fun, man. Look forward to talking to you again. Let's get together for sure before things get cooking with the Sabres. Look,
Yep.
there's nothing we could talk about with the Sabres now. We know everything there is to know. We'll see what they do, and that's all we can do. Plus the Bills, rookie mini, mandatory rookie, not rookie. I keep saying rookie. mandatory camp next week with the Buffalo Bills. We'll see if James Cook's there. If he's not, that could start to become a little bit of a storyline. So we got plenty of stuff to talk about here in the coming weeks, man. I appreciate you as always, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me for the Saturday special, man. I'm fired up.
All right, guys, and I will be back on the video side live 9 p.m. as usual. Joe from Queens will join me. Podcast version, of course, coming out on Monday. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.